Hey guys, I'm Maxadrums and welcome to the third and final part in this fill concept series. In the first part we talked about patterns that were 4 notes long, in the second part we talked about patterns that were 6 notes long, and in this one we're going to mix those up to create something really cool and be a little bit more creative with that. So I'm going to assume that you guys already know those patterns from the previous lessons, and if you feel ready, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so this is where things get really fun, interesting and creative, and a little bit harder as well until you're used to these kinds of concepts. We have to make sure that we play the right amount of notes in a measure of 4/4 or whatever we have. In this case we're going to play it in the 4/4, and to do that we have to figure out the mathematics behind it. Now as you do this more and more you get really comfortable with it and used to figuring this out on the go, so you don't really have to think about it eventually, but for now you really have to do the math. So we have groups of 6 and groups of 4, and in a measure of 4/4, if we're playing 16th notes, we have 16 notes. So we have some different combinations we could do this. What we have to do is to take these different either figures of 4 or the figures of 6, put them together and make sure it gets to 16. So we could for instance take of 6, 6 and 4. That adds up to 16. Or we could take 4, 6, 6 or 6, 4, 6. Does this make sense? So we're using the patterns from the previous lesson. Have a look at the notation at the bottom of the screen. This is a written out 6, 6, 4, and that's what we're going to try first. So let's keep it to the snare drum and bass drum at first. So next up we want to get comfortable with improvising between these different patterns. So let's not care too much about how many of each we play, if it ends up being 16, etc. But let's just try to get fluently being able to play 6, 6, 4, 6, 4, and you can choose whichever 6 you want to play. If you want to play the da-da-da or the da-da-da. It's up to you which one you want to play. But yeah, so let's try that out right now. Alright guys, so the last thing to do is to make sure we can play this with the groove. And so what we're going to do is a little bit interesting. First we're going to play 3 measures of groove and then 1 measure of fill. And for that fill you can play whichever order you want of the previous grouping. So you could play 6, 6, 4, etc. Just make sure it's 16th notes total. But the third time we're going to play 2 measures of groove and then 2 measures of a fill, which means you now have 2 measures to switch around between your different patterns. So you could play 6, 6, 4, 6, 6, 4, or you could for instance play 4, 6, 4, 6, 6, 6, whatever adds up to 32. You have a lot more notes now to play around with. So that fill that I was playing at the end of Lonely Boy was actually a 2-measure fill. So I played a 6, 6, 6, 6, 4, 4 with 2 different voicings for that 6. Alright, so that might sound like a lot, so let me explain again what we're going to do. We're going to play 3 measures of groove, 1 measures of fill, 3 measures of groove, 1 measure of fill, and then 2 measures of groove, 2 measures of fill, 2 measures of groove, 2 measures of fill, and then we're done. Alright, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this little fill concept series and that you're able to play some really fun stuff now. I know if you are not used to these things, you have to practice this a lot, but eventually it becomes very natural, and instead of just learning specific fills, it opens up a whole world of improvisation, and you can just create your own small patterns, create your own 6s and 4s, etc., and mix them together as you want to come up with really cool new fills. And since you're memorizing this pattern, the voicing, if you want to play it on high tom, low tom, snare, whatever, it's endless of possibilities. Not really endless, but there's a lot of possibilities. So you don't only get one fill from one pattern, you get so much more. So I hope this lesson helped you guys out. I hope it made you a little bit more creative, and I hope it gave you something. I hope to see you around soon. Take care. Talk soon.